It is fucking cold. Jesus Christ. Good Lord. Fucking negative balls in panic room degrees outside. I literally just came in from outside because my stupid fucking truck cap was frozen shut. We're trying to open it, and it was frozen. And it was the handle, the turning handle that was frozen. It's like, okay, I'll just pour a little room temperature water on it. That should fucking do it. No? So then I finally said, fuck it, and went and got my little blowtorch. That got it open. I just had to run it over it a couple of times. You know, those little click butane cigarette lighter gimmicks. That did the trick, but Jesus Christ. What is that in Kelvin? It is 9 degrees here without the fucking wind chill. I think probably lower than that, honestly. With the wind chill, it is negative 18. Good Lord. It is cold. Ugh, I don't even want to go outside to smoke, honestly. It's just dying. And it sucks, too, because, like, it just affects the indoors. Like, we don't have great insulation. But I had a heater on in my office at the house, and it said it was 70 degrees in there. Like, there's no fucking way. So I moved it away from the wall, and it said fucking, was it 63? Unbelievable. Freezing here, OC. I yearn for global warming. I just want to know what Pilgrim was like, you know what? This is good. This will work. This is fine. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Boy. Oh, boy. Anyway, chat. Hello. How are you doing out there? Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone's having a lovely, lovely day out there today. I know it's fucking cold everywhere, too. Like, it's not just here, but it's worse here, and it gets a little bit easier as you go south, but them Southerners ain't used to it. Yeah, there's Kara Soldier. It's in 20s here in Austin. I bet that city shut the fuck down, too, isn't it? You guys ain't used to that weather. Is Drunkle okay? He texted me yesterday and said, I quote, that his throat is fucked, end quote. And I responded back, I bet it is, you polyword. Silly MAGA voters, it's cold because of global warming, don't you know? Oh, true. 22 in Atlanta. Bare minimum, keeping the home warm enough so your pipes don't freeze. I'm worried about the studio. I'm worried about that. 31 here. Oh, fair. It got up to 25. Yeah, all the schools that I've seen so far are closed. It is bad. And I see old people on Facebook going, back in my day, we wouldn't have closed these schools for no snow. It's like, you fucking retard. They're not closing it because of no snow. They're closing it because it's negative 20 fucking degrees out. And you're in the same fucking school building. You're probably, the ones today now are in the same building. So it's had fucking 60 years of time to get worse. And honestly, I don't mind the school closing because of cold temperatures, because that means I don't have to fuck around in the cold temperatures. There's kids nowadays that have to wait outside. The bus is half hour, 45 minutes. Like, nobody wants that fucking shit. That's terrible. Why am I the last one to hit the like button at 14? I think it's frozen. Oh, yeah, frozen because it's freezing outside. No, yeah, I think you have to like refresh to see the updated like button. Like I see it at 32 now, which isn't great. You guys should be doing better. You guys should be doing a lot better. Ravon says it's 25 there. 24 feels like 11. Jesus Christ. I never thought Massachusetts would be having better weather than we are. Schools used to have direct heaters in every class. They also say warm year round, so days were out. Yeah, they don't do that anymore. Like when I took a tour of my kid's school before the year started, they had ceiling fans and plug-in heaters. It's like, yeah, no shit, they're closed. Fucking idiots. Now, there you go, Thomas. Nicely done. Divine Petulance at 66 and sunny. Divine Petulance is about to get fucking banned. Negative 25 almost. It's supposed to get even colder the next couple of days, too. Oh, I hate it, and my sinuses hate it even more, because, like, one nostril will be bone dry, and the other one will be backed up with, like, a mile of gunk and snot and shit. It's fucking terrible. Plug-in heaters, what in the ghetto fuck is that? Dude, it's just, for some reason, probably just the cost of energy being too high, they have cut off, like, those, oh, I bet it's because kids were little retards and kept putting their hands on it, those radiator heaters. They just don't do that anymore. I don't know why. 80 proof vodka warm me up enough. Fair enough. I know just the cost of my studio. Maybe it's 500 to 700 square feet. It's not huge, but it's not little. It's like $80 a month to keep this thing at 67 degrees Fahrenheit. It is, oh, God, I couldn't imagine a school what that cost. Anyway, guys, we're going to get into the show. We're already 15 minutes into it. But guys, please smash that like button. Share it out on your social media. Should you feel so inclined, Streamlab is listed down like that. Just like that. Exactly like that, actually. Ah, the loads. The loads. Who would want the cost of energy to go up and up? Climate activists? People who own companies. First on the Awoo train. All right, if we can have another follow-up Awoo, we can start the Awoo train. I think we can absolutely do that. Those old radiators are inefficient as hell, decommissioned for environmental reasons, probably. Retards. I think it's probably a little column A and a little column B. Like, those radiators used to get fucking hot. It would be terrible in the summer. Kids kept putting their fucking hands on them because they're stupid. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were just like, you know what? No more warm classroom. I was in the 20s Sunday and I drove around FedEx. It was cold as shit. But the day wore on, it didn't feel too bad. It felt like it was in the 50s to me. Yeah, once you're out there and you kind of get used to it, it doesn't feel too bad. But for me, I don't do a lot of outside stuff. So most of my outsiding is the walk from the car to the gym to the house, or the walk from the car to the gym to the car to the house to the car to the store to the car. In like those little fucking 4 or 5 minute trips. It's like I'm standing on the wall in Game of Thrones. Fucking awful. It's awful. My model paints arrived Friday. They were almost frozen solid. Holy shit, man. Does that... I don't want to call them millennials.
We're looking at sea otters. 6 of them here.
That's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And that's how we learn not to touch them. I don't want to call them millennials, but it's whatever generation would have raised me. What's that? Gen X? The people that are in their 60s-ish now, that'd be Gen Xers, right? They, instead of going... well, you shouldn't have touched the radiator, Timmy. They went, why the fuck are they letting these kids touch the radiators? Don't you know that this can hurt them? Why is that? Why are they like that, huh? Now, boomers are like people born in the 30s and 40s. But they got mad at the teachers for not covering the radiators with chicken wire or whatever. Let me run through these real quick. Sin, just happy to be dry on the side and snot on the other nose. I'm sorry. Sin, just be happy it's dry on one side and snot on the other for your nose. I've gotten some nosebleeds from this weather and dried red snot other times. This is nosebleed o'clock. This is definitely nosebleed o'clock. You get that dry shit. Oh, boomers were born after World War II. Oh. Alan for 10, Sin. Alan. Kira Soldier. I read that one. And Ravon for 777. Let there be train. Okay, if we're calling for the official train, I said if we got another one. Sure, it got derailed in the meantime, but that's okay. Let there be train. So it is written, so it shall be. Mid-40s to 60s is Gen X. I'm 44 in Gen X. Yeah, but you guys, the Karen generation. Can we start calling these people Gen K? I feel like that would be appropriate. Gen K would be appropriate. My mom would have said, well, she learned not to touch it. We are a rare breed indeed, Valine. Because most parents that I knew would be like, why were you letting the kids do this? I'm gonna sue the school. We're gonna get paid. That wouldn't be accurate. There's Zoomers that... All right. All you Karens in the chat. You know what I mean? Add another car to the train, and indeed I did, good sir. There is another car added to the train. Gen X late boomers are Karens. Well, they're the... Uh-oh. They're the Karens who fucked up everything. I should say that. They're the Karens who fucked up radiators in schools. But it just blows my mind to see these posts on Facebook. Why are these kids getting called off? We used to have to walk to school in this. When the fuck did you have to walk to school in negative 42 degrees? Richard, what's the matter with you? Fuck you. Anyway. Toddlers exist, never mind. Toddlers do exist, that's true. My parents were the same, learned by doing. Yeah. Early boomers are the I told you it's fucking hot dumbass. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, guys, smash that like button, share it out, do the thing with the thing and the thing down below. We are, we're one Awoo from 10% away from goal. We are 2 Awoos on the train, and we're going to get right into this after 20 minutes of pedantic talking. What's the fallout from Iowa?
What would happen if we held an election the way that Americans used to do it just a few years ago? We should try that sometime. Here's how it would work. Everyone would vote on the same day in person. You would show up and present an ID, just like you do at the airport or the liquor.
Gen X, we get blamed for being driveless slackers, but the ones before us screwed everything up. Well.
Store. Then you'd mark your preferences on a piece of paper. You do it manually. There would be no electronic voting machines. There would be no drop boxes or absentee ballots. The poll workers would probably be people that you recognize from your own zip code. They'd be your neighbors. They would not be employees of Mark Zuckerberg from California. As for the names on the ballot, you would get to choose those yourself, as citizens do in a democracy. Judges wouldn't be allowed to tell you who you can vote for and who you can't vote for. You'd get to decide.
Yes, the executive running of an executive election. You gotta love it.
And then once you voted, nobody could order a stop to the vote counting. That would be illegal. So you would know the results of the election in just a few hours, and you would feel pretty confident that they were pretty real. That's how we used to do it in this country. What would happen if we tried it again? Well, as it happens, the state of Iowa did that very thing last night. They had their caucuses. That's the first contest in the 2024 presidential.
Have you guys seen Nikki Haley doing the, hold on. See if I can pull it up. Their third place meme. Have you guys seen Nikki Haley going, we are now in a 2-person race. This is officially a 2-person race. It's me and Trump. Can I make it smaller?
Cycle.
Oh, God damn it. It's exactly what I wanted to avoid. It's now me and Trump. Me and... Well, you're just not... Let me... There we go. And she came in third. She's like, it's just us.
It all felt very retro, very non-third world. But the results were interesting. Here they are. Donald Trump won 51%.
I saw that meme with her face on it. She's literally doing the meme. And does anybody believe for a second, honestly, that she got more votes than Vivek? No, I just don't.
Of the vote. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida got 21%. Nikki Haley got 19%. In other words, Donald Trump won decisively. At this point, it's hard to see how he's not the Republican nominee, because he didn't just win last
I haven't seen one person who's pro Nikki Haley.
night. He triumphed overwhelmingly by a historic margin. Trump won the Iowa caucuses by about 30 points. That's more than double the previous record. That was set in 1988 by Bob Dole. So last night was not close. It was a shocking blowout. Trump did...
You know, Jesus Christ. You know what else is shocking? There's only 2 on the Awoo.
...to Iowa what the Vikings once did to the Irish coast. Only smoldering huts remain. Chris Wallace looked like he was going to be sick.
Yeah.
On the other channels, they cast about looking for an explanation for this unexpected calamity. Here was NBC News's, quote, explanation.
This is a state that is overrepresented by white Christians that are going to participate in these caucuses, especially tonight. Earlier today.
It is overrepresented by white Christians. Again, put that in any other context. Imagine somebody saying, well, you know, New York is overrepresented by illegal Mexicans.
Reached out to Robbie Jones from the Public Religion Research Institute, knowing that we were going to talk about Iowa. And this is a hyper-evangelical white state. I asked him, what do they get out of supporting Donald Trump? Because he keeps losing, he keeps delivering losses and losses and losses. And he said the following: they see themselves as the rightful inheritors of this country, and Trump has promised to give it back to them.
The rightful inheritors of this country. What does that even mean?
All the things that we think about electability, about, you know, what are people gaming out, or none of that.
Even what's his face is looking at her like, is this bitch fucking crazy?
That matters when you believe that God has given you this country, that it is yours, and that everyone.
Jesus Christ, Valine, that is hilarious. I can't even read that out loud.
Who is not a white conservative Christian is a fraudulent American.
Oh, the whites. You can see Chris Hayes just repeating himself. I just want to keep my job. I just want to keep my job. But they're very upset. And at some point, it'll be interesting after all these many years to discover why a certain sort of person fears Donald Trump to the point of hysteria. There's an awful lot going on there.
That's a good question, because at this point, he's proven himself to not really do anything. But maybe that's why they fear him, because he won't do what they want him to do.
They're much more than we publicly acknowledge. But in the meantime, it is enough to know who NBC News believes is at fault for yesterday's history-altering calamity in Iowa. It was the whites, the Christian whites. You knew that. And if you're being honest, you can see why NBC is so upset. At this hour, millions of devout Christian whites are streaming illegally over our borders, toting their blonde children in their prayer books. And in the process, they're wrecking our schools and hospitals and cities and raising the cost of living and hiking the crime rate. We're watching an invasion by the Christian whites. It's scary. Yes. But it's not just NBC.
Have you guys seen those floods of Christian whites coming over the border?
See.
What I do find interesting, though, is we have done literally everything humanly possible to aid Ukraine in what's going on, except taking refugees. I wonder why.
That feels this way. Joe Biden's entire re-election message is based on hating these dangerous Christian whites. You heard it unmistakably in his speech last week to a black church in Charleston.
Ooh, M4 Sherman coming in with that number 3 spot. Ooh. I'm just going to say it. Trump is most likely going against whoever the Democrats send against him. What he said about rolling back all of Biden's border politics most likely boosted his support in New York, Chicago, since they've seen what Dems have done. I don't know, man. I think you might be underestimating their party loyalty. Yeah, I think that's how I would word that. I think you're underestimating their party loyalty. I think no matter what, these people would 100% vote for Biden because they just believe whatever the TV tells them to. Where's my cursor? There it is.
You should watch the whole thing online if you'd like a preview of every Democratic presidential campaign to come for the next generation. It's the Robert Mugabe strategy. The real problem, Joe Biden explained, is the whites. They did it. Never mind that white people's life expectancy is dropping faster than any other group in America, thanks in large part to suicide, and that they will soon be a minority in the country their ancestors founded.
Could you imagine? Whoa. Could you imagine that if that wasn't white people, how often that would be on the front page of every newspaper? Because we see trans suicides top of everything. You see everything with the alphabet community, but if it were the other way around, you can finish that one on your own. I have to be very careful.
If anything, these trends aren't accelerating fast enough, says Mugabe Biden. There are too many white people. It's their fault. So Democrats and the media have been saying species of this for years, as you know, and they say it both because apparently it works politically and because they sincerely believe it. And there's no sign they plan to stop anytime in our lifetimes. But for now, they have a more pressing problem on their hands. That's how to stop Donald Trump and his white Christian campaign. And that's a tough one, and it's made tougher by last night's results. Thankfully, they have a plan, and the plan is Nikki Haley. Now, Haley
has got to be the most, I would say her and Christie are the most unlikable human beings to ever run for president. On the Republican side, I got to clarify.
Frankly, underperformed last night. They told us she was surging in Iowa. She was not surging. Nobody really likes her. She came in third by a thin margin, and that denies the media the chance to declare her the one true alternative to Donald Trump. But don't expect them to give up on Nikki Haley. A Nikki Haley presidency is a lot like a war with Iran. It's a terrible idea. No normal person wants it. But because a small, well-funded group of extremely enthusiastic activists are determined to have it anyway, we are perpetually on the verge of getting it. The next skirmish in this ongoing battle is going to take place a week from today in New Hampshire. And hard as it is to believe, Nikki Haley could do pretty well there. She could even win the New Hampshire primary. Potentially.
I could see Nikki Haley winning New Hampshire. I could see that. But definitely not a place that actually matters, if that makes sense.
Potentially. How's that possible, you ask? Well, it's taken a lot of coordinated effort and, above all, an awful lot of money. Judging from available disclosure,
if Nikki is a nominee, I'd vote for Biden. That's probably a better choice, honestly, because you're just going to get the same thing, but with more warmongering.
Nikki Haley's team is burning through about $3 million a week in New Hampshire. By contrast, Ron DeSantis seems to be spending zero there. Now, much of Haley's money comes not from Republicans or conservatives, but from committed Democratic partisans. Anti-civilization activist Reid Hoffman, for example, is a major Haley supporter. Reid Hoffman is the founder of LinkedIn. He's a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. He was a visitor to Pedo Island, in fact. He's also the guy who funded E. Jean Carroll's sexual assault case against Donald Trump.
That's interesting.
Reid Hoffman is a Democratic mega donor. In 2020, he gave $1 million to David Brock's American Bridge PAC. That's a group designed to physically harass Republican candidates.
Then why would he be supporting a Republican?
His money has also helped to prop up the authoritarian governor of California, Gavin Newsom, as well as many others on approximately the same team. So you know exactly who he is. What's interesting is this cycle, Reid Hoffman is all in on Nikki Haley. His cash is paid for one of the most shameless propaganda operations in memory. So the very same people who told you 4 years ago that Joe Biden was a jovial, moderate grandfather just trying to return America to normal, those same people are now trying to sell Nikki Haley.
Oh, yeah, if you guys haven't noticed the stream goal, I usually put this up in the beginning, but we're just going to want to go ahead and eat all the rhinos that we're talking about, the Haleys, the Christies, et cetera, et cetera.
Haley as a
the Bidens, the whoever else is running on the Democrat side. I don't think anybody else is running.
Conservative woman of principle. And one of the most enthusiastic peddlers of this absurdity is the neoliberal governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu. He's been stumping for Nikki Haley in multiple states. Now, you may not know much about Chris Sununu. He gets relatively little attention outside of New England. His charmlessness makes him a terrible TV guest, so they don't put him on very often. But there's probably no Republican officeholder in the country who hates Republicans more than Chris Sununu does. At one point a few years ago, he complained that there were just too many whites in New Hampshire. Sununu has far more in common with Joe Biden than he does with the residents of, say, Caucus County.
I was muted. That's beautiful. Marianne Williamson is running on the Democrat side, and the Biden admin is trying to get her kicked off of the ballots. That is the least surprising thing I've heard all day.
Listen to Chris Sununu explain how Nikki Haley is the natural leader of conservative Republicans because she's got her bony finger directly on their pulse.
When you put all that package together of experience the fact that she is the wife of a combat veteran, the fact that she's a mom, the fact that
she's a con man.
she brings some humanity to a lot of these very tough issues. And most importantly, again, it's not a big government solution out of Washington that we're promised. She looks at every issue through the eyes of the voters, through the electorate.
She looks at the issues through the eyes of she's channeling you.
Oh, yes. Nikki Haley is one of us.
Because the thing about Nikki Haley is she's just totally real. She's America's most authentic person who somehow wound up in this phony business of politics, probably against her will. She's doing it for your sake.
Yeah, she's not doing it for herself, no.
But Nikki Haley knows what Republican voters care about because she feels it deeply in her soul. It's reflexive. She leads from her gut. She sees the world through your eyes. Nikki Haley is not a bloodthirsty, power-mad feminist robot who takes millions in cash payoffs from the people who make weapons of mass destruction in exchange for promoting their wars. Oh, no, not at all. Nikki Haley is one of us. We can trust her. Okay, Chris Sununu, you seem like an honest guy. We believe you.
She has a mustache.
But will voters in New Hampshire, Republican voters, believe Chris Sununu? Some of them probably will. Haley's approval numbers among self-described conservatives remain remarkably high. Why? Well, because she's been endlessly promoted on the news outlets they watch.
That's not a real name. I don't even know how to pronounce her real name, so we're just going to pretend it is.
And read. Thank you, Wall Street Journal. But those outlets are not telling them the truth. Nikki Haley is not a conservative. That's not a slam on her. It's just a fact. Nikki Haley's a committed neoliberal, just like her creepy little friend, Chris Sununu. And it's measurable. For example, how many Republican primary voters support the wave of illegal immigration that is currently destroying our country? Not many do, but Nikki Haley does.
Zero. Nada.
Illegal aliens are not criminals, she once explained to her friends at the Aspen Institute. We can't disrespect them. How dare you disrespect them? We should give them amnesty. Reid Hoffman agrees with that, and that may explain why he sent her so much money. Then there's the issue of BLM. Consider that. Did Republican primary voters support the rioting and looting and killing that enveloped this country after George Floyd died 3.5 years ago? They didn't seem to support it, but
No, and they were labeled writ large as racist, whatever, whoever, because they didn't support it. Hey, man, I'm not a real big fan of having my cities burnt down. Well, have you considered not being a fucking Nazi?
Nikki Haley did support it. Quote, "It's important to understand that the death of George Floyd was personal and painful for many. In order to heal, it needs to be personal and painful for everyone." Nikki Haley wrote that on Twitter as the fires were burning. Nikki Haley wanted the rest of us to suffer because some armed robber died of a drug OD after passing a counterfeit bill at a convenience store in Minneapolis. And in the end, we did suffer for it. We suffered very badly. Nothing in this country has been the same since. But Nikki Haley has never apologized for that. She meant what she said. Then you've got to...
Because she's not the one who has it personally affecting her. We, the plebs, are and do. You know what's a fact, Sin? That ratio looks like if dog took a shit and made jerky out of it. Dry, hard, and, well, dog shit. Smash the like button, you asshats. And to that, I must agree. You guys should smash the like button. You should be sharing it out. And you should consider hitting up that Streamlabs. It'd be greatly appreciated. We are 3 on the Awoo train. We are a little over 10% to goal. And we want to yeet those fucking rhinos into the sun as quickly as we possibly can.
I wonder if normal people, if Republicans, for example, still want to spend billions more to the corrupt oligarchs in Ukraine. At one time, a lot of Republicans did want to send more money to Ukraine. But
No.
At this point, now that we have the evidence of what the results are, they probably have some reservations about that. By the time the Ukraine catastrophe reaches its depressing and inevitable conclusion, the United States, its taxpayers, will likely be on the hook for $500 billion all in.
Is that not just lovely? $500 billion of our taxpayer money.
So it's fair to ask, what did they get in return for all that money? Well, we got an entire generation of dead Ukrainians. We got a completely obliterated Ukraine. And above all, we got a much weaker and much poorer America. We got pointless suffering and death and destruction. And that's all we got. But it wasn't enough death and destruction for Nikki Haley. For reasons that surely have nothing to do with her deep financial ties to the weapons industry, Nikki Haley demands that we keep the slaughter going in Ukraine and send billions more than Congress has appropriated, even if we have to cut current programs to pay for it. Nikki Haley didn't just think that or dream it, she said it out loud. So how is that the reasonable, much less conservative position on foreign policy? It's not.
It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be the one that the donors and the lobbyists want.
Insane. Nor is establishing a vaccine registry for Americans.
Oh, that's just... that's lovely.
A conservative idea. Nikki Haley tried to do that too as a member of the South Carolina legislature. And maybe most ominously, Nikki Haley buys into the anti-human, anti-science precepts behind the Green New Deal. Haley has said repeatedly that she accepts the terms of the so-called climate debate as devised by the forces currently trying to destroy the West. Haley has declared climate change a, quote, national security issue.
So it's basically Biden with saggier tits.
That's a position that further politicizes the U.S. military, something we very much don't need. Haley has suggested she'd be willing to accept more waves of so-called climate refugees from the world's poorest, most backward countries. The idea there is we displace these people from their ancestral homes in Africa and the Middle East by our selfish use of air conditioning and Chevy Tahoes.
Actually, you know what? I'm okay with it. Be a more developed country. Oh, well.
Therefore, we have a moral obligation to import them here along with their extended families and immediately give them free housing and health care for generations because it's only fair. Nikki Haley accepts that idea as reasonable. Needless to say, most Republican primary voters don't think that's reasonable at all. They think it's crazy and destructive because it is. Not that they'll have a chance to complain about any of this if Nikki Haley ever became president. As she explained recently, people should not be allowed to express their opinions on the internet without first registering with the government.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I think that might be a worse idea. Well, you have to register with the government. You need your ID, your driver's license. You don't need an ID to vote. No, that's racist. But if you want to express your opinion on the internet, you do need an ID for that. Yes, absolutely. That is correct.
That's not exactly the constitutional position on free speech. That's the North Korean position on free speech. But whatever. Nikki Haley is our Margaret Thatcher. Yay, girl power. You wonder how many Republican voters could ever fall for something like that. Some of them probably will, the ones who haven't bothered to learn the details. In New Hampshire, it's not going to take a lot of those. New Hampshire has an open primary system, and that means that non-Republicans get to help choose the Republican nominee. Next week, estimates suggest that 40%, maybe more, of all primary voters in the Republican primary will not be Republicans. So who will they be? Well, they'll be...
Well, they've been trying to slowly but surely weed Republicans out, real Republicans, America First people. They have really been trying to weed them out from the ability to run for years, if not longer. So if they have the opportunity to do so, they're going to do it. And they're going to do it proudly. And they are going to take... Well, I struggle to say take...
I don't want to be strong like men who look pretty. I want to be strong like bitch that fight bears in the forest.
They're going to take away your Awoo train just like that. I don't want to say take the right away because it is, you cannot take a right away. Then it's not a right. But it is what it is. They're struggling to take the rights of people to vote for who they want to vote for. It's going to be Kang and Kodos in no time. I know I don't want my money going to Ukraine. They aren't even a country before 91. It was a region before World War I. It was split between the Russian Empire and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Not Hungarian. The Balkans or something like that. No. Ukraine is not a real place. It's made up. It's in your head.
Liberals, like this one.
Yeah, I'm still undecided on who I'm voting for. I'm a Democrat, but I think Biden's too old to be in office, and I watched the Republican debate, and I think Haley.
Ooh, shit, we're almost 20% to goal. We're 25 away from 20%.
I definitely don't agree with a lot of her platform, but I think she has a lot of momentum behind her, and I think she's much more capable than both Trump and Biden.
Wow.
She sounds like a fucking idiot.
You mentioned that you're a Democrat and said Joe Biden's a little bit too old. If it came down to Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden, which way would you lean then?
I think I'm still undecided on that. I definitely agree a lot more with Biden's platform, but I think Haley's more capable of the job.
That poor girl. She'll be embarrassed by that tape at some point. But she went on in that video to explain that the issues that she cares most about in the world are, quote, climate and transgenderism. So that's where she is politically. And if Nikki Haley...
She sounds real fucking high. She does.
...wins the primary next week, it will be because of people like the woman you just saw. They are the real Nikki Haley voters. Now, if Nikki Haley wins or even does very well in New Hampshire, it'll be a big story, of course, and we'll hear a lot about it. But then what happens? It's a long primary process. New Hampshire is just one small, heavily wooded state out of 50. Will Republicans in other states back Nikki Haley too? Will she win a string of these? Well, they're not going to vote for her voluntarily. Haley can only become the Republican nominee if Republican primary voters have no one else to vote for. So the plan works like this. Ron DeSantis drops out after losing a few contests in a row. He simply runs out of money and has to head back to Florida. That could happen.
DeSantis, that whole thing is very disappointing. Because he came out, he was very strong. He was boisterous. He came out hot. Then he just shit the fucking bed. Jesus Christ.
And at that point, liberal donors swing as a block behind Nikki Haley, giving her bottomless resources. That's already happening right now. And then critically, Donald Trump goes to jail. And that could happen too, to be honest. And at that point, bam, Nikki Haley wins the Republican nomination by default. Now, it's not a foolproof plan. A lot could go wrong. But at this point, it's the only plan. It's all that Democrats have. Joe Biden is going to have a very hard time getting reelected, much less serving another term. It's impossible to imagine that. Yet the party cannot replace him because that would leave Kamala Harris, who is even more unpopular than he is. Because Harris is a member of the new master race, she cannot be booted off a presidential ticket. She must be shown maximum respect at all times, no matter what she says or does. And so that means the Democratic Party is stuck with two fatally unpopular candidates. It's their doing, of course, but it's a massive problem. They can't get out of it. So their only option at this point is to run a Republican who has the same views as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And that is exactly what they're doing right now, no matter what they tell you. And that candidate's name is Nikki Haley.
That is saddening. That is saddening to say the least. But let's take a look at another issue that rhinos are most likely going to get us into. And it's going to be the USA falling in one way, shape, or form. And what happens when the power grid goes. And if the government's doing anything about it.
Dennis Quaid is one of the most...
But before we do that, please smash that like button. I'm seeing 150 watching and 30 likes. That's insane. Guys, smash that like button. Share it out on your social media. Should you feel so inclined, Streamlabs down below. Almost 20% to goal, and we got to eat these fucking rhinos into the sun.
Famous actors in the world. He's been in about 150 movies spanning almost 50 years, and he is at the same time a really interesting and engaged person with a lot to say, who thinks a lot and thinks freely. He's also an accomplished musician. But he has a project coming up that you probably ought to know about. We thought it was definitely worth telling you about. And so we're grateful that Dennis Quaid is joining us on set right now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tucker. I'm so glad to be here.
So, I mean, I could ask you a million questions, but I want to get right to the project that's coming up right now about our power grid that you did. Can you just give us a quick overview of what this is and why did you?
I don't know why anyone gives a shit what an actor has to say about this, but here we are.
You do it.
It's called Grid Down, Power Up. And it's about an issue which concerned me really for quite some time.
Oh, he wrote a book about it. Okay. I guess if I would have just waited 30 seconds.
They did a little segment on 60 Minutes about this, but basically, there is a 100% probability that our sun generating what they call a GMD.
Sin, what is the Luna special? Well, it is a donation I made just for Luna, and it is fucking amazing. It's the most America donation to ever America.
Yeah.
Ask the people who saw it. It is chef's kiss.
Which is a solar storm that hits our Earth and the magnetic field that we have around the Earth, and can fry everything that is electric above the ground, including our entire grid.
And this would happen organically, naturally? That's just what the sun does?
It has happened. There was they call it a Carrington event, which happened in, I think it was 1859. And at that time, basically, we had telegraph lines.
Whoa. So this has happened.
As far as electricity goes. And it fried our entire telegraph system. It was set up, had to be...
We need to go back to vacuum tubes. Those were comforting. There was just something about those click, and then you'd like walk by and it would pull the hairs on your arms up. There's just something wonderful about them. Sega never looked so fucking good.
Replaced. And
the entire thing.
The entire thing. And so imagine what that would do now with a very large storm, which there's a 100% chance of it happening. That was a 100-year event, they call that one. And
I'm not good at math, but
the trillions of dollars that it would take to replace all that, plus we wouldn't even get to spend those trillions of dollars, because it would take out not only the electricity, but all of our entire infrastructure, and our society runs on electricity. We don't know how to live without it. You turn on, there wouldn't be any water in your tap. You couldn't get gas for your car because the whole.
There was a great show on the History Channel. Maybe it was Discovery. I don't remember. I think it was the History Channel that showed what would happen if people just disappeared, and how long it would take stuff to deteriorate. Now, inverse it. Think about if people were still here and stuff just deteriorated.
System is broken down. Everything that we rely upon would be gone.
Life after people, yes.
The food would melt in our refrigerators. There would be, and they predict within a year, about 90% of the population would be dead from starvation, disease.
I feel like 90% is a little bit of an understatement. Do you think people like Hassan Piker and all of his army of 12-year-olds could survive without power? There's no way.
Or, people, it gets back to the Stone Age.
Now, this might strike some viewers as harsh, but I believe everyone involved in this story should die.
Well, that's not fair, because we're talking about literally everybody right now. What the fuck, chat? That ratio is less than dog shit. It's worse than the worms inside of the dirt, and if you haven't smashed the like button, you're the problem. Do it, fuckers. Ooh, Steve Dave coming in with the heat. Thank you, Steve Dave. Much appreciated, good sir. And yes, he is right. You should be liking and sharing and doing the thing with the thing and the thing down below. We're almost 20% to goal. We're $15 away from 20% of the 500 goal. Yeah. That's math.
Killing each other.
Yeah.
Well, that's shocking.
Yeah, so
bit of information.
That really lifts your day, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I'm adding that to the Armageddon file that's growing.
Nobody's really talking about it, and in fact, President Trump actually signed an executive order to harden our grid to protect ourselves against an event like this happening. Obama tried to get that going as well, and it's stuck in these regulatory agencies that, and lobbyists, because money needs to be spent. Most of our grid power companies are privately owned, and you can understand them not wanting to spend money on something that might occur. But this is definitely going to occur.
Yes, I understand. But no, I don't like it. I know how much I pay a month for my fucking studio, not even my house.
Occur.
And so it would mean, and this is not from a foreign adversary. This is just a solar cycle, or
well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, but this is, but we're starting with just what nature might do.
Yeah, this is not what you call an enemy. This is, our the sun that we rely upon every day, and these solar storms that happen, and they happen with frequency, and you've seen everybody's seen pictures of the sun where the storm is happening and these flares come out and they're ejected out into the solar system, and we just like in packets, and we I think it was 2014 we barely missed one by 5 days that went across our path of orbit around the sun.
Sin's gonna build a Faraday cage around the studio. Dude, I think that would be the most cost-effective way to try to keep all this shit safe. But holy fuck, man. How are Faraday cages not more widespread, I guess would be the right word? Same problem with the nuke detonated in the upper atmosphere sin called an EMP. Yes. There's a novel on the subject called 1 Second After. Really quick and easy read. All electronic is out. Total devastation. I'm going to put that in the old Amazon search bar right now. Thank you, Fustonia. We are one Awoo away from 20% to goal.
And it's going to happen. And then, once it hits the Earth, there's a 50% probability of it either being us or the...
Oh, it looks like it's a trilogy. 1 second after, 1 year after, and the final day. These look like novels, though.
Eastern Hemisphere. Who's ever exposed to that's the sun?
So, is there anything that you can do? I mean, could you?
I don't know where I got the word graphic from. It just appeared. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
To harden our electrical.
Yes, there are simple things that we could actually do. That could be built in that would, not only for the military, which we'll get to, but just civilian infrastructure to protect it, that relatively inexpensive compared to what it would cost if an event like this happened. And overall, over time, it'd probably be about $100 billion, about the same that we just gave to Ukraine.
So
to protect them from the Russians, and it'd be money spent. Plus, also the process of doing this, it's like a space program. You find out all kinds of other things that actually help society and advance us in our technology. But they're basically relays. Protective relays that could be put at our substations and transformers, that in an event like this happens, kind of similar to kind of a surge protector that you have in your computer, that since that there's a surge like that, and cut it off to protect.
It's not. There's no surge protectors in computers, I don't think.
Protect it frying our transformers.
Would, pardon my total ignorance on this topic, I'm embarrassed, but would such a solar storm hurt people or just electrical components?
No, it doesn't hurt people. In fact, it's only like the transistors and anything electrical, and you can melt it. These transformers that we have, I think there's we remember the blackout that happened in New York not too long ago, and that.
Oh, that was like 2004. What do you mean not too long ago? It was 20 years ago.
It was trees that were hanging over a power line, just like that, which caused a surge of power and upset the balance. And it all relies on these transformers that get overheated, and if you need to replace one, you don't just replace one. They weigh about 500,000 pounds to begin with to get them. It takes, if you want another one, it takes 2 years to get one. We just don't have them sitting around just ready to replace either. It's really difficult. It takes time. And if you had a situation where your supply chain's cut off, and we get some of them from China, by the way, and it's just tough to do.
If I can just ask you a dumb question, so an event like this happened in 1859, and it took out our entire telegraph system. So this has been known for quite some time.
Yeah.
And yet we built a system that's vulnerable to it.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, the storms come in varying intensities. That Carrington event, must have been upwards of like 85 volts per meter. I think that's what the figure is, the way they measure it. And our system is built to take on like 8 volts per kilometer. I mean, 8 kilometers, and it won't handle it. That's what Obama wanted. That's what Obama did when he, by executive order, wanted to harden our system. He wanted it brought up to that, and the regulatory people, NERC and FERC, took it and said.
Sounds like a couple of bad guys in a movie, NERC and FERC.
And wound up just protecting our infrastructure to 8 volts. And so it's like 10 times less. There was, because of these other storms that came through, one I think was like 12, another one was this or that. And so it wasn't a worst case scenario, in other words, that they prepared for. And that's what you need to prepare for.
Of course. Now, you're describing what we used to call, when we believed in God, acts of God.
Yeah.
Probably are acts of God, but whatever.
No, it's not how that works.
But things that no human can control.
Right.
But there's a
force
whole
majeure. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a whole nother category, though, of attacks from adversaries or terrorists.
Yes,
or
that's the other thing. And
what are those?
Another scary thing. I think the world, as far as the danger in the world today, is much greater than when I was growing up. I grew up at the height of the Cold War, where we had duck and cover.
Yeah.
I lived in Houston, which was within that circle during the Cuban Missile Crisis of getting hit, and probably would have been hit, and by the bomb. And it's scarier today than it was then. At least we had mutual annihilation, and we had deterrence, based on that we wouldn't pull the trigger because your adversary was going to destroy you too. And today, that club has grown to where it's not only Russia, the United States, it's North Korea,
Iran,
that everybody knows, Pakistan, India, Iran, which they believe they already have the nuke. They just don't have the delivery system for it that could reach the United States. And
so we're giving all these countries that absolutely despise us carte blanche to just go, hey, you know what? We're just going to knock all this shit off. Israel? Yeah, can't forget Israel.
You believe Iran has a nuclear weapon?
I think they do.
Yeah.
The Russians have been helping them out. And if they don't have one, they're going to have one within 6 months to a year. And it's really, we've been approaching it, well, they don't have the delivery system. They don't have the ICBMs can deliver that all the way to the United States. They definitely could hit Israel, though, who they're committed to.
Oh, we have to worry about Israel getting nuked, not anybody nuking us. It's Israel. Okay.
Destroying. And, but they also have their terror organizations. And it's gotten to the point now where it's getting so condensed. These suitcase dirty bombs, whatever they are, you could definitely rig one of those up and hook it to a Scud missile, put it on a cargo ship just off the United States coast, send it up to a certain altitude, explode it, and how that would...
You would take out the stream boss, duh.
What they call a super EMP, which is electromagnetic pulse, which is the same thing as a geothermal event, with the sun. It's if you send up a missile, a nuclear with a nuclear bomb on it.
God, could he
it
be
exploded
more
at 400
stuttery about this?
Kilometers above the Earth, in space, basically. You won't see it. You won't see the explosion because it's in a vacuum of space. You won't hear it. No people will be killed. But the gamma rays, which are thrown out from that, would encompass most of the United States and take out this very same grid. And which could cause a power outage all across the United States up to months, even a year. And we'd have the same scenario that we described before.
I mean, you hate even to game it out, but like if that happened, if huge parts of the United States had no power for a year, I mean that'd be an extinction event for a lot.
They've done a study, and 90% of the population would be dead within a year.
I feel like that's probably accurate. Yes, the Amish people know how to live without it, but we're not talking about Amish people. They have their own self-sustaining ecosystem. But this is for your bog standard American, think half of which are on food stamps and welfare. Do you think they're going to be able to survive this shit? No.
During this Carrington event, I mean, one thing, we didn't rely on electricity, and everybody had a cow if you wanted milk, and you had a horse if you wanted to drive. Your car wouldn't work. What do? Your telephone doesn't work. There's no way to inform the public about,
anything.
So you kind of messed up.
So, I mean, that in some ways seems far more effective than nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, you're not killing people, and so that makes the decision to use them a little. It's not. Easier. You don't have to wrestle with your morals.
Right. There's no smoking hole at Hiroshima.
Yeah, exactly. And just because there are so many actors doing this, and there are terrorist subgroups as well.
Well, how many of them were funded by us at one point? I feel like that's a good question.
Who do you retaliate against if it's done from a cargo ship and you don't even know where it came from? So who was the perpetrator? And who do you retaliate against? And yes, the military has hardened most of their infrastructure when it comes to this, but they get their electricity. 99% of their electricity comes from civilian infrastructure. So how long is that going to last? And
so do you think when it's magnified EMP attacks would take out a lot? I mean, most civilian power plants?
Yeah, just one.
I think if you aimed it right over fucking the middle of the country, you would take out most, if not all, of the power plants.
What they call a super EMP, and that has to do with the altitude where it is exploded. From the center of that covers a certain area, whereas if you were lower down, you would only be able to cover that much area because it spreads out in a circle. So, and it just fries everything.
So why, I mean, I know there are a lot of things to worry about.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things are failing at once, obviously, but this seems like you might want to move it toward the top of the list of things to worry about.
Yeah, I would think so. I really would think so, but it's...
Oh, yeah, satellites, don't forget that. Well, it's not going to work anyway, but yeah.
And indeed, the the Russians and the Chinese have done so much more to harden and to protect their infrastructure than we have. And so it gets down to that whole thing about survivability, being able to survive an attack and to attack someone and then being able to survive when they retaliate. And they've got that going for them. And it also makes somebody like, Iran, who it's a fraction of what their military budget is, and they know they can't defeat the United States. But I mean, even
Iran would be the most likely one, I think, that would do something like try to hit us with an EMP, or somebody wanting to make it look like Iran did it. That's what I think would be the most likely. But we are just one Awoo away from 20%.
A simple terror group can get their hands on a Scud missile and a nuclear device, you can really do some damage. And I don't know why that our government has not been informing us more about this. Back during the Cold War, when I was a kid, I was, in the 4th grade. We kids were informed about what could happen, what to do if something happened. At least that. And also, let's get something done.
I mean, I don't think the average person has any idea that this threat exists.
Yeah. No, they don't. The vast majority of the people don't.
Where is the climate lobby on this?
Well, it doesn't affect them because they won't be able to make money off of it. Duh.
I mean, they're very involved in trying to remake the grid and
right.
Change our sources of energy, and they're energy experts. But is this something that they're taking up?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Or windmills?
But this really definitely, this has to, well, they would be affected too, of course. But it's that's all about the fuel that comes, to the power agency, or whether it be coal or wind or whatever it is. But if you knock out these relay stations, the power can't go anywhere. Just fries everything.
So this does suggest, I mean, our country's population is clustered in cities.
Yeah.
Those probably aren't going to fare as well.
No. It'd be easier to look.
Major cities, New York, Cleveland, Manhattan, they're all just going to fall in a day. It's going to be goddamn terrible.
Live in the country, of course, and people who live in the country would probably have better ideas, better knowledge of how to survive after an event like this. But it's a scary proposition. I mean, there needs to be education, and there needs to be something done about it, and done about it pretty quick. I mean, these protective relays that could be installed in the transformers, starting with that. I mean, we have the technology. We know how to do this. It's not something mysterious that we have to get involved in. What we do need is something like a Manhattan Project that we had back during World War II, where the Germans, we knew that the Germans were trying to develop a bomb, and so we got there quicker. And somebody to cut through all the bureaucratic red tape and be vested with the authority to get this done. We could do it in a couple of years.
So you mentioned FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that be the agency that would be thinking about this?
Yes, you would think that, but that's not the way it works. Obama sent this to Congress to get it done, and then it gets caught in FERC and NERC because they're controlled by the lobbies, the lobbies of the energy lobbies that it's about. They'd have to spend money
And we all know that the energy lobby, well, any lobby really, is not going to shell out cash for the greater good. We know that's not going to happen.
And which they don't necessarily want to do because, you know, it costs a lot. Yes, it would cost a lot. I think the government should help in this. And there's so many of them, too, scattered across the United States. You know, they're locally owned, most of the energy companies. There's an energy company in South Carolina that is really doing something about it. And there have been some cases where, you know, we've had energy companies that are making moves to protect the grid, but that's only one little part of the grid. You know, it's when it comes down to it, they depend on the one next door to them and the one next door to them.
It would cure the AI problem pretty quick, though, right?
It probably wouldn't, actually, because that shit's probably kept in Faraday cages. Play? Hello?
You'd have no AI with no electricity.
Yeah, exactly.
But you wonder, there's all these, I mean, a huge part of the American economy is based on digital commerce, digital innovation. I mean, this is being...
Right. Financial system is going to break down.
Exactly.
Transportation breaks down. Your water doesn't work. Food delivery is gone. Your telephones don't work. You go back to, basically we go back to that Carrington event. The world goes back to 1859 and we're all in the dark and the lights are out.
Don't you need a car I think like 80 or something that won't get taken out in an EMP?
So you would think that all these other sectors of the economy would be lobbying, because they all are dependent on electricity. Everybody's dependent on electricity. So if I'm Google or if I'm Microsoft running AI or whatever, like I need a...
Yes.
I would be lobbying
especially
for this.
you've got to have that. And plus also just the effects of the gamma rays, you know, upon these microchips that they're melted. Actually, you know who the largest manufacturer of vacuum tubes is? Russia.
Ooh.
Vacuum tubes?
Vacuum tubes. Russia and China. They are still in the business of manufacturing vacuum tubes because
vacuum tubes like
they
in the
are
back
far
of your
more
TV?
resistant. They are far more resistant to these gamma rays.
Are you serious?
Yeah, than the microchips.
Do they make
the old analog technology is you know would work with internet dial-up, you know.
Are they making horse carriages too? They probably should be.
They probably should be, yeah.
So, okay, well, you just blew my mind.
Yeah, you want to go out and join the cavalry, I guess.
So what kind of reaction are you getting when you tell people this?
The mouths agape, kind of like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because nobody hears about it. And it's something we don't like to think about. But I think people think of it in terms of an asteroid which is on its way to destroy the Earth.
Right.
You know, that seems like a very remote, in fact, is very remote. But this is, you know, whether from the sun or a bad actor, this is something that 100% chance it's going to happen. And we are just no way prepared for it.
It would be instant chaos. It would be instant chaos if everything just collapsed immediately. Nobody's prepared for it. 90% of people, not only are they not prepared, but they think that they are prepared and are going to make dumb fucking decisions and die immediately. Oh boy, oh boy.
It's absolutely terrifying. So of all the projects you've done, 150-ish, I mean, this has got to rate among the most significant.
Yeah, David Tice, he was a producer. He produced
the body is round.
That's true. The body is round. Hydroelectric dams would be the first to recover since they have manual valves. Also, you need something like an old crank start motorcycle to instantly transport for you. Yeah, that's true. that would work. But yeah, this is just bad news bears, really. And people should be doing something about this.
Soul surfer that.
I'd rather have my tax dollars going to EMP proofing the grid than to Zelensky's wife's tits.
Yes.
And he's a patriot and really smart individual. And he called me up because he created this movie, Grid Down, Power Up. That's the name of it. And asked me if I wanted to be involved, and I'd seen that 60 Minutes episode, about the geothermal event happening like that. And I just said yes, because I remember it really frightened me when I saw it. And then I, like everybody else, had just gone on and forgotten it, because we have so many threats that are right in front of us.
Right.
Yeah, that this gets pushed to the background.
It seems like a pretty obvious one, though.
Yeah, and
but it's not, because reasons.
It's always the one you don't see. It's that gets you. It gives us feet of clay, basically. We may be the big, bad, greatest nation on earth, the United States, with all our, but in some ways, all of this technology, this highly industrial complex that we've built has feet of clay because of this little simple thing.
It's kind of perfect, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it is Tower of Babel stuff, like people build this.
Yeah, it's the Trojan horse,
Yeah.
Honestly, Sin, it's not the problem that we know about that concern me. It's the problems that we can decide to do something about that worries me. What's up? The problems that we know about that concern me. We know they're, and decide to do something about them. What worries me is the problem we don't see till it's too late, and that wipes out all of us. Yeah. But at that point, there's nothing we could have done to prevent it, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. Thank you, Fastonia.
Yeah, this massive thing, and it's vulnerable. Looking back on all we were talking off air about all the movies that you've done, what are the ones that you remember most vividly?
Well, The Right Stuff is my favorite.
Why?
Period. Because it was when I grew up in Houston. I wanted, John Glenn went up. I was in the second grade. They rolled the TV, and everybody that replaced wanting to be a cowboy. Everybody wanted to be an astronaut back then. And
being an astronaut is the modern day cowboy.
I grew up.
It's like exactly what it is. You're exploring the new frontier.
Wanting to be, and then along came the book, and I read it like in 2 days and wanted to play Gordo Cooper, because he was my favorite astronaut back then. He was the youngest one. He was like the rock and roll astronaut.
Yeah.
And then, couldn't believe it, I got the part. And then it turned out Gordo Cooper lived 3 miles from me in LA.
No way.
So I called him up, and we became good friends. And he turned me on to a flight school, and I learned to fly. I got my pilot's license from that.
Whoa.
And still fly jets now.
That's pretty cool.
But it was like the ultimate boyhood fantasy, that role. And it took 9 months to do it. And Chuck Yeager, legendary Chuck Yeager, was on the set every day. So it was a great time.
It sounds unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you were saying off camera that when you started, I think your first movie that you were in or around was 1975. How long did it take to make a movie then?
It was at least 3 months, to make a movie back then, because of the cameras. You shoot one side of a scene, and then you got to what they call turn around and shoot the other person going the other way and seeing the background the other way. And the lights and the cameras that we had at the time meant that it was at least a 2 to 4 hour turnaround. So you just sit in your trailer and wait for that to happen. Now all that happens like in 15 minutes, and so movies just move really quick.
But if you're taking months out of your life to go to a location far from your home, and you're in.
Okay, this is not interesting. I want to skip back to the EMP talk.
It's like biosphere with all the other actors. And
right.
I mean, that's like its own world, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. And it was real time consuming during the Cold War. If the ICBMs were coming over for,
all right, we get back to it.
You see a complete circle of it. It was like being on another planet.
So the Earth is round. You're confirmed.
The Earth is completely round.
Okay, so but you know that.
Yeah. Yes.
Where were you staying?
I can confirm that. They had a great little hotel there. It's kind of a tourist spot for people to come. There were 1,500 people there and 3,000 polar bears, they like to say. And that's an interesting community, actually, because it was started by an American, which is good.
Skip.
So it was extreme.
I want more missile.
We had ours. The
doomsday talk.
Do you have some working their way out of you right now?
Tucker.
All right.
Calls Chris. Go in. Put me. It was like, nobody.
Okay, we're done with that. We're gonna get to the last one. Talking about our old boy CRP, and I know CRP was a little bit of a firebrand, I guess would be the right word, a controversial figure, might be another way to say it, but it has been confirmed that this is what we're going to get into, that he has been unalived. He's actually been unalived, so we're going to get into his father talking about this.
In February of 2022, the Russian military rolled across the border of eastern Ukraine.
The body is round.
The body is round. It's still weird how different his brother is. Shitter's full. It is kind of weird. Thank you, Valine. A little over 20% to goal. Nicely done. Nicely done, guys. Very much appreciated. If you guys want to continue to support via Streamlabs or even just liking and sharing, it is greatly, greatly appreciated. You have no idea how much it helps. And we have about half hour, 45 minutes, 20, whatever amount left.
And for the next year and a half, the American media and political establishment spent, what's fair to say, a disproportionate amount of time talking about Ukraine and America's obligation to support Ukraine and pay for Ukraine's military and its government and, of course, support it morally and, above all, to hate Russia. And most Americans obeyed. Politicians wore Ukrainian flags on their lapels. American citizens put Ukrainian flags on their mailboxes and on their bumper stickers. But one thing most Americans didn't get a lot of was actual news from Ukraine. What was it like to live there? What was happening inside that country that we were supporting and paying for?
Well, we can't know.
Couldn't really know because there's virtually no coverage of it. But on social media, there were a few people reporting in what seemed like a pretty honest way from within Ukraine. And one of them was an American citizen called Gonzalo Lira. He'd lived in Ukraine for quite some time, and he posted, particularly on Twitter, his accounts of what life was like there and his view of how the war was going. And so for people who are interested in what was happening, he was worth watching. Here's one of his reports.
The Russian economy is sailing on, sailing on. European economy, people are starting to die of hypothermia in the UK because they don't have access to the cheap energy of Russia from before. See?
He undoubtedly did some decent reporting.
And so everything that the West has thrown at the Russians has boomeranged right back at them. And so now they're panicking and they're trying to figure out a way out of this situation. And they figure that if they throw more tanks, it'll help. It won't help. The Ukrainians, rather, they had like something like 2,000 tanks before the start of this conflict. You think a couple of hundred now is going to help? I mean, why are they asking them? Because those 2,000 tanks are gone. That's basic, you know? And so what, a couple of hundred, maybe 300 tanks, is that going to change the outcome of the conflict? No, it won't. The Russians are just going to destroy them. In the West, all of the propaganda has said that,
I heard about that from Polly. This has been done by him before. I highly doubt he is faking being dead for, he's been offline for 2 years now? I highly doubt he's faking.
Zelensky's a hero, a Winston Churchill figure, and the Kiev regime are just angels and stuff like that. No, they're bloodthirsty murderers, the Kiev regime. I'm telling you right now.
So he made a couple of points. One, Russia is not losing the war with Ukraine. Russia is winning. Two, the Russian economy, despite the sanctions from the United States and Western Europe, and despite the war, has not been destroyed. The Russian economy is actually fine, and in some ways it's improving. It's becoming more independent, more commodities-based, and that's an advantage for a country with a lot of commodities like Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S.
His death was confirmed. He didn't fake being dead last time. He was taken interrogated for like a week or something, and they released people were thinking that they killed him, but then he came back. Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, I don't think he's faking this.
U.S. economy and U.S. military power has suffered as a result of the war. Now, Lira, to the extent that people responded to him in this country, in our media, was denounced as a Russian puppet and a liar and a propagandist. But in fact, now we can admit he was right. What you just heard was true, factually true. Russia is...
I don't even think if you wanted to, you could deny it.
...not losing the war in Ukraine. Russia is winning. Russia's economy is fine. Ours is not. So what happened to Gonzalo Lira? Well, for posting that video and others like it, he was arrested by the government of Ukraine, the one that we pay for, the supposed democracy that we support for moral reasons against the autocracy of Russia.
Yeah, you know that lovely democracy, Ukraine, where they said they won't have elections unless we pay for it? Such democracy. Much wow.
He was arrested, and then he was let out, and then he tried to leave the country. He tried to leave Ukraine. Here's a video, his last video. This is Gonzalo Lira.
I will definitely be sent to a prison labor camp where I will most certainly die. And so I decided that the smart thing was take my chances in terms of getting across the border. Right now, I'm maybe 5 kilometers away from the border with Hungary. Over the last 2 days, I rode my bike just about 1,300 kilometers from Kharkov all the way here to the border. And my intention is to cross the border, get to Hungary, and in Hungary, I'm going to ask for political asylum. So either I will cross the border into Hungary in the next couple of hours.
Now this is the shit that pissed me off. We got a 6-10 WNBA player out of Russian jail for and gave up a fucking arms dealer, but her own State Department couldn't be bothered to ask a favor from Ukraine to get CRP out. Fuck Ukraine. Fuck it. Indeed. Well, the WNBA player was part of the Alphabet Mafia, so clearly.
Or I will be arrested again, and God knows what will happen to me.
He never made it. 5 miles from the Hungarian border, 5 kilometers rather, from the Hungarian border, he was arrested. Gonzalo Lira remains in prison tonight, a political prisoner in a country that we were told was free, a country whose government we are still paying for. The Biden State Department is uninterested in the fate of this American citizen. In fact, of course, they support his imprisonment, and no one in the national media seems interested in his fate whatsoever. So we thought it would be worth speaking to his father, Gonzalo Lira Sr., who joins us now from Chile. Mr. Lira, thanks so much for joining us.
Whoa.
Have you heard from your son? Do you know where he is? And do you know how he's doing?
Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you.
For the opportunity of saying what is going on with my son, Gonzalo. Today will mark the 7th full month that he's been arrested in Ukraine. He has not gone into trial. He's awaiting trial. He was appointed a court attorney. That doesn't...
Wait. I thought they confirmed he was dead in here. Why is everyone saying he's dead? I thought he was dead.
Speak English. He's an Ukrainian attorney. Insofar as the U.S. Embassy, they haven't done a thing. Neither I nor his sister living in the USA, and I'm reading because I don't want to lose anything.
We watched this. This is an old... I don't think we did watch this. Oh, this is. Why is this so old? Oh. You know what? I checked the quote tweet, not the tweet. The quote tweet says his son died at 55 in a Ukrainian prison. Oh, okay. I clicked the wrong button. What is the community note on this? He was arrested for giving away AFU positions on the Russians. He died of pneumonia. Lara attempted to dox. So people are just, they're falling over themselves to cover for this. I wonder if he will cover the fact that he was killed. All right, we got one more we're going to do, then I'm going to get the hell out of here because I need eats.
Seem very interested in public health, in case you haven't noticed. The Surgeon General of Florida, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, is an exception to that.
What kind of name is Ladapo?
He is interested in the health of the people of his state, and because he is, he's taken a close look at what's in the COVID vax, the one that everyone in the country was required to take not so long ago. And he's come up short. He can't answer some basic questions about it, and that's a concern if we're doing science, which he is. And so he has now called on doctors to immediately stop giving the mRNA COVID vax to their patients, and for a very interesting reason that you should know about. Here's his statement.
They're never, ever going to stop mRNA vaccines. They make too much money.
We're quoting. I'm calling for a halt to the use of mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease.
Sounds like a new virus. Man, I have been seeing a lot of stuff, people talking about a new virus going around. And I don't know, people I know are sick. Like, I ran into my neighbor when I was sick and I had to go get antibiotics. And she said her and her husband were laid up for like 6 to 8 weeks from just virus, and there's nothing they could do. Shit, I was sick like all of December. Look at Drunkle. He's sick every week.
Disease control and prevention have always played it fast and loose with COVID-19 vaccine safety. But their failure to test for DNA integration with the human genome, as their own guidelines dictate, when the vaccines are known to be contaminated with foreign DNA, is intolerable.
I got sick a few weeks ago and I still feel short of breath. It seems like whatever's going around now is hanging the fuck on for a lot longer than usual.
Think about that. It's one thing if it gives you a heart attack. If it tampers with your DNA in some way, now we have a real problem.
Why was there no AAA stream? I said earlier Drunkle was sick. Oh, you might not have been here. Drunkle's sick.
1 billion people got it. So in a recent interview about the mRNA vaccines, the Surgeon General of Florida described them this way.
These vaccines have DNA in them. Everyone knows what DNA is.
I got sick in December and I'm still getting better. I think I'm over the worst of it, but my fucking little germ factories brought something else home. So I got better from that, whatever the fuck I got, like all of December that had me knocked out. But they brought something else home, but it doesn't seem to be nearly as bad.
They're contaminated with DNA, and that's not necessarily a big deal. But it's a problem with these vaccines because the DNA hangs on with the mRNA and goes into people's cells. So this is a completely different risk analysis than other products that have had DNA. These vaccines are honestly, they're the antichrist of all products.
The antichrist of all products, the Surgeon General of Florida.
That's a pretty accurate name. It's a good band name.
Joins us now to explain what he means. Doctor, thank you so much for coming on.
My brother got sick in early November. He's still coughing. I still have breathing issues. Donkey and I have been fighting this cold thing we have. It's mild, but it's hanging on. Yeah. Whatever is going around is bad.
I remember at the beginning of the vax mandates, there were people on the fringes, as we say, who raised questions about the potential of this drug, this brand new, this novel vaccine, which wasn't really a vaccine, to affect people's DNA. And they were immediately described as crazy. Tell us your concerns, if you wouldn't mind fleshing out a little bit what we saw in that clip.
You know, it's so interesting to hear you say that, Tucker, because I had the same impression when people very early on were citing concerns about DNA. I think that really what was happening is that their intuition was informing them about.
I don't know what it is, but whatever the sickness is that we've all had recently is a lot worse than when we had COVID. This does seem to be significantly worse than when COVID was going around. This is bad.
A potential problem with these vaccines. And, you know, you showed that clip there. This one is sometimes
and I think what makes this bad is that it hangs the fuck on.
I feel quite guilty dragging people through the scientific details, but I try and do it at a level that hopefully won't bore people to death or be too painful, because it is a very important issue, and it's not a complicated issue, and it's important for people to recognize the difference between the.
Like, look at what happened to my aunt. She's been sick since like Thanksgiving. She got better for like a week, and then she got sick again.
Honest facts, which is what I'm sharing, and the spin and dodge and look over here that you hear Dr. Califf at the FDA and other, you know, Dr. Offit, other people sharing. So it's actually very simple. We all know what DNA is. You know, this is our genetic blueprint, our gift from God. And
you think COVID was the primer? I don't know. I'm not a virologist. Just saying what I noticed. I slept for 5 days straight with a fever, and I'm still coughing my lungs out. Jesus Christ.
DNA can be affected, and that can be obvious.
I went to urgent care and to my doctor when I was sick, and both times I've heard them both say that that's just something nasty is going around. Like, urgent care was standing room only. I left and went back later.
Obviously a very bad thing. Sometimes it's affected in a way that makes people sick. Sometimes it can even be affected in a way that leads people to pass on characteristics to their offspring. In this particular case with the mRNA vaccines, they have DNA in them like many other vaccines or other biologic type of medications. And that, as I've said previously, is not such a big deal, because fortunately DNA is not some big hairy monster that can, live forever when it's foreign in people's bodies. Our bodies have lots of mechanisms to break them down. But the problem here is that, for the same reason that scientists won a Nobel Prize, this DNA isn't like other DNA in terms of having a very hard time penetrating into cells. This DNA hangs on with mRNA in that lipid nanoparticle that people hear and frankly probably roll their eyes over. It hangs on with it, and it comes into the cells almost certainly hitchhiking along with the mRNA.
This just sounds scary.
So whereas in the past, DNA would have a very hard time even entering cells, here the DNA is getting delivered into cells with the lipid nanoparticles. And that's a problem. And that's a problem because each dose of mRNA COVID-19 vaccine probably contains, it's been estimated, between billions and hundreds of billions of fragments of DNA. So this is a completely different risk analysis. That is obvious. You don't need a PhD to be able to figure that out. And the FDA's own guidance about contaminating DNA, published guidance, their words, never referred to by them, by the way, in their counter-arguments, but their words are that there are situations when you need to confirm that DNA that is a contaminant or foreign DNA is not integrating into human DNA, into the human genome. And there are specific tests, sequencing tests, to do this, to make sure it's done. And what we did is we asked the FDA, well, have you done this? You've acknowledged this risk. Have you done this? And they came back with about 10,000 words talking about everything from what time the sun sets in China to, their third cousin's, bar mitzvah, and nothing about the specific question we asked, along with other questions, by the way, but nothing about that, which leads me to conclude they haven't done it, which is, it starts at crazy, but it ends at somewhere else. That someone could be just so nonchalant and frankly willy-nilly with something as precious and as as sacred as our human DNA. So that's a summary.
God bless. Just keep in mind, guys, we are the carbon they want to reduce. And with that, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I got to go eat, guys. Thank you for coming and hanging out. Thank you for an incredible show this evening. Very generous, all the donations, guys. Have a lovely evening. I will see you tomorrow at 3-ish p.m. for the Sin and Sash stream. Then later for the AAA meeting on Polydub's channel. Have a good night, everybody.